Okay, so how many sets is optimal for muscle growth? Okay, I know generally I recommend one set. Okay, I'm going to explain in this video why, because the vast majority of bodybuilders or gym goers or whoever, fitness YouTubers, recommend multiple sets. Okay, so why? Why do they recommend multiple sets? Why do I generally only recommend one? Now, yesterday, I've got people sending me messages, not actual studies or literature or anything, but just messages. And a lot of the times the messages say, well, why do you recommend just one set when it's been proven that 3 sets or 4 to 6 sets is better for muscle growth? So generally my response is, where did you see 3, 4, or 6 sets is better for muscle growth? A lot of the times they report something they read by Chris Beardsley, maybe Paul Carter, and they say, well, Chris Beardsley says this and Paul Carter says this. My response is, well, did you actually read the study that they provided, or did you just regurgitate something you scrolled by for about 15 seconds on Instagram today? Okay, so here's the thing. If you guys really want to understand this, you're going to have to calm down a little bit. You're going to have to take some time to understand the physiology of muscle growth, understand, basic anatomy of skeletal muscle, and understand how to read literature, understand statistics, and take some time to actually read through these studies. It doesn't take too long, and I highly recommend, if you guys are really interested in this stuff, I really recommend you just read some of the literature, okay, some of these studies. You're not going to right off the bat be able to understand everything that's going on in the study, but you should practice. And how do you practice? You practice by reading them, okay? If it matters that much to you, how many sets are optimal, instead of taking time out of your day to watch all these videos to try to come to your own conclusion based on what this person says and what that person says, why not read the literature that's provided? So Paul Carter often provides studies where he comes up with his recommendations. Go to Google, type in the name of the study, the year, and the author, and read it. They're only about 4 or 5 pages long usually, and then come to your own conclusion based on what you read. All right. Full disclosure, I don't care how many sets you do. I really don't. Okay, it comes down to what it's worth to you. If you're an individual who's under the impression you need to do all these sets and all these workouts per week, and you're not training because you're under that impression, then just do one set to failure, okay? Because there's so much benefit to just doing one set per exercise, even just once a week, that you'd be absolutely insane not to do at least that, okay? So we're talking about that. But a lot of people want to know what is optimal. What is the optimal number of sets? What is the optimal exercise? This, that. And this is kind of like the Huberman effect. Huberman talks about what's optimal, what's optimal, what's optimal. Well, my question to you is, why do you want optimal? And do you know the difference between effective and optimal? Because the difference is not that great. Generally, what's happening is people have modest, normal, average ability to grow muscle, They try a training program, they don't blow up, they don't get super jacked in 3 months, and without realizing that their modest response is going to be the result of anything they try, they start digging into, well, what's better? 3 sets, 6 sets, 9.5. What's better? Pull over, pull down. So I'm just going to stop you right there. And I've said this a million times, but remind you that worrying about those small factors, those small variables, are not going to make a difference in the long run in your overall physique. They're just not. But this stuff has become popular because most people, again, average, respond modestly to muscle growth. Most people are not going to be over 200 pounds and lean, considering average height. And this is what kind of fuels people to watch and read all these different videos, watch all of Paul Carter's content, read all of Chris Beardsley's republished studies. So we need to just first consider that. It doesn't really matter what you do. Most of you are going to have modest responses in terms of muscle growth. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that you can't have a great looking physique? Absolutely not. This means you can have a tremendous looking physique, but it very likely is not going to be 200, 220, 240 pounds of muscle with low teens or single digit body fat. This won't be you, okay? So a lot of the times when you have this idea in your head of what good results are, and you get up to 180, 185 pounds, 11, 12% body fat, and you're under the impression your results are bad, it's because you're comparing it to that. You're comparing it to generally people with unusual genetics, not even great genetics, not even genetically gifted, unusual genetics, very unusual, and a lot of the times performance enhanced. So when you're comparing your results to those people, your results going from 150 pounds to 185 pounds is going to look not so impressive when it is. That's 35 pounds of muscle. So to start this off, let's just clarify that. Results are generally going to be modest, okay? So just get that out of the way, get over it. Okay, now how many sets is optimal? The vast majority of the literature, if you sit down and read it, show, and I quote, no significant between group differences when it comes to different volumes in terms of muscle growth, okay? And I was watching a video by Paul Carter that recommended 4 to 6 sets is better for muscle growth. And then I looked at the literature he cited, but that literature didn't say that. The literature actually said, if you go and read them, no significant between group differences for muscle growth. It did, however, show some slight difference in strength. And I'm not sure if Paul Carter misinterpreted the differences in strength for differences in growth, but that's what they said. And another thing some people have asked me, well, there has been shown to be a significant increase in muscle protein synthesis with 3 sets or 6 sets or more sets in general. Okay, that might be true, but when they measured this significant increase in protein synthesis, did that correlate or come with an actual measurable increase in muscle growth? Most of the time, the studies show no. So we are assuming that this drastic jump or increase or higher amount of protein synthesis, we're assuming that will correlate to more muscle growth down the road, but none of the studies have actually shown that it does. So we're making an assumption here. So if you're basing your amount of volume on how high protein synthesis is, it's kind of silly. Because yes, an increase in protein synthesis does result in an increase in muscle growth, but did this drastic jump in protein synthesis between 1 and 3 sets, 3 and 6 sets, whatever people are claiming, did that correlate to actual muscle growth down the road? I haven't seen a study that did. So when it comes to how many sets are optimal, we also have to look at how are these individuals doing a set? All right. What is the individual tolerance? Are they trained? Are they untrained? Are they enhanced? Are they unenhanced? All these things play a role. So when you see something like, 4 to 6 sets is optimal, well, you've got to ask these questions too. 1, how are they doing a set? Is it a set balls to the wall to muscle failure? Or is it a set where they go, and then set it down right when it gets tough? Well, a set that is balls to the wall muscle failure is going to be way more effective than the previously mentioned set where you kind of hit the sticking point and give up. If that's the case, yes, more of those sets are going to be more useful. But if you're taking the set to hell and back, you're not going to be able to do more than 1 or 2. Okay, so when you're comparing sets, how many sets are optimal? We got to see how you're doing a set first. That makes a huge difference. Okay? Then we also have to consider overlap. The muscles involved that overlap between exercises. So if you say, 6 to 12 sets, I'm just using random numbers here, 6 to 12 sets are optimal for biceps per week. Okay. You must remember, when we do a pull down, when we do a row, we are training the biceps. So there's one study that I read that said, I believe it was 6 to 9 or maybe 6 to 12 exercises for the biceps per week resulted in the most growth. Cool. Now if we're doing a full body workout twice per week, and we're doing 2 or 3 exercises of pulling movements, say we do 1 set of a pull down and a row and a biceps curl. That's 3 sets on your biceps, 2 workouts per week. That's 6 sets per week. So I think a lot of people don't consider the overlap between muscle groups. Now, if we're training the chest, how many sets per week is optimal for chest? Well, 6 sets per chest. Okay. So if we do a chest press, a chest fly, and an overhead press, that's 3 exercises on your chest, twice per week. That's 6 sets. So, I think a lot of people don't consider the overlap between muscle groups. Shoulders, triceps. Every time we do a pushing movement, the triceps are heavily involved. A set per muscle group is not an exercise that only trains or targets that muscle group. A set per muscle group is any exercise that includes a high involvement of that muscle group, and it overlaps quite a bit between 2. So you got to consider these things when you're talking about how many sets are best for muscle growth. Intensity of effort, overlap, an individual tolerance, and recovery ability. So in the end, I don't really care. You're going to know how many sets are going to work for you. Ideally, we want to get as much motor unit recruitment as possible in as minimal sets as possible for efficiency reasons, for the sake of, each additional set provides more inflammation, more muscle damage, and extends your required recovery period. So we want as little as possible. Ideally, we want to recruit as many motor units as we can with high amounts of effort and create mechanical tension in those motor units in as little sets as possible, preferably 1. But does that always mean you are recruiting optimal motor units or getting enough intensity with just 1 set? Not necessarily. If an individual is new to training intensely, they're probably not getting everything they can out of 1 set. If you are an experienced trainee and you've been training to failure and you know how to train correctly, you've been doing it for a while, You're not even going to be able to do 2 sets, so you're going to get away with 1. So all these things are going to depend on the individual. So that's what I teach. I teach you how to get the most out of that 1 set, so you can get the most motor unit recruitment that your body's capable of in as minimal time in the gym spent as possible. Not how many sets can we mindlessly tolerate before we overtrain. That's insane. That's not what you want to do. You want to do everything as efficiently as possible. Unless you are an individual for some reason that likes to spend more time in the gym, well then watch a different video. This is not for you. But that's what I teach in my coaching program. If you want to learn how to really get the most out of muscle stimulation per exercise, per set, I need to teach you. Join my coaching. There's a link in the description below. But if you're doing this on your own, basically, take however many sets you need to completely exhaust that muscle. Take the muscle to the point where you say to yourself, man, there's no way I could do another. That's what we're looking for. You can do this in 1 if properly coached and instructed. If you're not properly coached or instructed, you may need 2. But if you're doing 3, 4, or 5, you're doing something terribly, terribly wrong. Okay? You're not focusing on addressing the muscle or stressing the muscle. You're probably quitting while it gets tough. You're probably focused on, making the weight move up and down and using momentum. There's something wrong, and you're just making it tremendously inefficient. All right? So that's my thought on sets. I don't care how many you do. Do 3, do 5, do 1,000. I don't give a shit. However many you need to stress that muscle significantly and recruit a lot of motor units and stimulate those motor units. It can be done in 1 with the right instruction and the right coaching, but not always. All right. So if you want to learn how to train this way to get the most out of 1 set and to shorten your workouts with better results, go to goldenairasystem.com or hire me for coaching. But remember, all you got to focus on is this. Train the muscle group extremely hard. Control the weight so you don't destroy your joints in the process. And don't train too much to where you result in overtraining. That's it. All right, hit the like, subscribe, bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I drop more videos like this.